All right, so I want to go ahead and get started. This will be probably a little bit of a short class, but feel free to ask any questions. So what this is I have two different forms that I'm going to use. So one for our Gora board, one for, I guess I should say our elite office. Most people are part of Gora is that, and then one for our Heartland office. That'll be the next form that I'm going to show, and of course that's for all of our agents that are in the Heartland office, and then that's used in whether it's H Card, GLAR, or Bluegrass or a couple other ones. It kind of they all use basically the same form. So what this is used for is after you take a listing. So you've already taken a listing. Everybody signed the listing agreement. It does not matter if it's on the market or not. You need to make a change to the listing. So me and Kevin just had this recently where we met with somebody. We had a listing agreement signed. We signed it at $399.9. Talked to the buyer a little bit more as we had a few days between the time we signed the agreement and went active. Ended up, we all decided that it was best if we price it at $389.9 to start. So we had to come in and use this form in order to make that change. So really simply, all you're going to fill out is listing agreement date. This is the date that is going to be on your listing agreement. So please reference that and make sure you put in that date. Who's the person? You can see mine's pre-filled because I downloaded mine straight off of DocuSign, but you'll have your name here, and then listing broker. This is where we're going to put Kellyanne Harris. Of course, she's our broker, so we'll always put her name there. And then Matt Brown, and the seller's name. I've read listing broker and skipped ahead. So the agent's name or Kelly's name will go right here, and then the seller's name will go on this line below. And then after that, Keller Williams Elite will go in the next line. So your name, broker's name, brokerage name. If that makes sense. Okay. Sorry, I told you that wrong in the beginning. So three different ways that you use this particular form. The next form has more options, but if you're doing a price change, so anytime you're going to change the price, doesn't matter if you change it $1 or you change it $100,000. This is the form we need to get signed. You're going to simply check this box. You're going to write in the price change right here, and don't forget to put in the number. So making up a number, 200,000, and then right out to the side of that number, you actually want to spell out what it says. So in this case, if we're using 200,000, it's going to be $200,000 and no cents. And the reason that this is good practice across any contract that you ever write, because if there's an error, and let's just say you left a zero off and you put 20,000. If you have it written out 200,000, the written out supersedes the number, but ideally that should also match. So there's a double check. Also, it can't keep somebody. And the reason when you put the number in, by the way, if you're doing 200,000, best practice is 200,000.00, put the cents in. And the reason being is somebody can't come behind you. I know this sounds crazy, but I promise it's happened before. Somebody can't come behind you and add a zero to the 200,000, and now instead of 200,000, it looks like 2 million. Now, obviously, that's going to get caught really quick, but where it might not get caught is on an earnest money. Maybe somebody's only doing $100 earnest money. Somebody comes and adds a zero, it looks like they owe $1,000 earnest money. Now our earnest money doesn't match our contract. So just giving you best practices there. But again, you'll just write out the new list price and the words of that number out beside it. And then you can change multiple things at the same time. So if you're changing list price and list expiration date, so you might be moving the expiration date up where they say, hey, you know what? I want this if we don't sell it by January 1, I'm going to keep it. You can use this form to do that. Or if you're at the end of your listing agreement and you need to extend the listing, then you can do that. So if it was scheduled to end, let's see, today's what? November the 6th. So you could change that and change it to January the 6th, for example. And again, you would just check this box. You'll write the date right here. Please make sure you include the year. So January 6th, 2025. Don't forget, if we cross over, I'm guilty of this. If we cross over, I'm still writing 2024 for at least a month. Just make sure that you double check that and you put in the right year, especially when you're crossing over January 1. And then the initial here. And then additional terms. So I've seen this used a lot of times for if there's something else in the agreement that you need to add. So, for example, I've done interest rate buy downs with my sellers, and I had a seller that was offering $10,000 towards buyer buying down their interest rate, and we literally just wrote that on these lines. I was talking to an agent recently that was offering a $7,000 window allowance, so you could put that on this line. Keep in mind that anything that you're offering, it's always best to get it in writing. As a matter of fact, I'll say this: if your seller is saying, I'm going to offer some sort of concession, it needs to be in writing on your end so that you have proof of whatever you're advertising came from your seller and it wasn't just you making it up. And I know none of you would ever make it up, but it's all about like CYA, right? Cover your booty to make sure that should it come down to a he said, she said, you need documentation to be able to prove. And then, of course, everybody initials in each of the boxes here. Then below it just says the seller and listing and broker agree these amendments do not invalidate or change the present listing agreement except for the extent specified in this agreement. These changes to be the effective date of the seller's written acknowledgement. So what that basically is saying is we can change the price here, or we can change the date or add an additional term. Outside of those things, everything that we agreed to in the listing agreement still stays the same. Then your seller is going to sign here, date and time. Listing broker can be your name, and then, or excuse me, this doesn't actually need to be your name. This needs to say Kelly Ann Harris. I just saw my name and made me think that. Kelly Ann Harris, but you can sign on Kelly's behalf. So regardless of what market center you're in, you can always write down the broker's name, and then when it says buy, you sign your name there, and then that makes it effective. And then, of course, you'll update the property address and then the MLS ID. So pretty simple document, just one of those that I had never covered before, so I wanted to cover really quick. Now, if you're part of our Heartland office, then you're going to have a slightly different document. It's going to look something to this effect. This happens to be a commercial document, but there's the exact same document in DocuSign that looks basically the same. You're going to write in the address. You're going to write in the listing ID. This is your MLS ID, just for clarity. And then you're going to check which box you're changing. What are you changing on this side? So if we're changing it, so for example, the Heartland MLS, they do allow a pending do not show and a pending can show, for example. You could check that box and write the date out. Or if you're bringing it back on the market, you're doing an extension, you're doing a price change, all of those things, or even just a correction to the listing agreement, you can check that box. You simply fill out what is being changed. It's not enough to check the box. You do have to fill out what's being changed. And then you put in the office code. Obviously, mine autofills with Elite, but if you're in Heartland, you're going to put Heartland here. Listing agent name, listing agent code. These are your MLS codes. You can pull those off of Paragon, of course. I don't think that's really necessary that you have to put those in. But and then get the owners to sign, obviously, broker signature, and then date and time for both of those. So real simple, 2 forms, no matter where the location is. This is how you update your listings. Anytime you change anything on a listing, these forms have to be filled out, or a version of these forms if you use a slightly different form. The main thing is you got to have it writing and you got to have it documented. So that's it for today. Easy one.
Hey, question.
What questions do you all have?
So when it goes pending, we have to also update it in Paragon, right?
Yes, that is correct. So anytime that you make a listing active, you make it goes pending, or you have a closing, you have 48 hours from that time, basically 2 business days, to go in and update it accordingly. So Eric, on your Epworth, if you haven't done that yet, you'll need to go in and close it in the MLS.
Even it, so that was coming back. So I need to go in Paragon and mark that as sold.
Oh, correct. And it'll ask you certain information. So it'll ask you who's the selling agent. Of course, in this case, it'll be Rebecca. So it's super easy. What type of loan did they get? So you'll have to look at the contract to fill that out. The price, and then I think it also asks you if there were any seller concessions, like closing costs covered, stuff like that.
Okay.
Good question. Any other questions? Okay. Just a reminder, we did move tech training. So tomorrow I'm going to be talking DocuSign. I just figured out a new trick to make printing documents out of DocuSign easier than what I've shown you before. It actually saves about 5 steps. So tune in tomorrow at 11:30 Central or 12:30 Eastern, and we're going to talk a little DocuSign. In the meantime, if you need anything at all, don't hesitate to reach out.
Thanks, Matt.
All right. See y'all.
All right, buddy.